Now it may sound like a broken record by now, but we are back in sunny Goa for the launch and test ride of a new motorcycle. But in our defense, we have got something more special and more relevant to this place because this is the new Royal Enfield Goan Classic 350. And as the name suggests, this is a motorcycle that pays tribute to the land of sun and sand, that is Goa, and what is also arguably the most popular tourist destination in the country. But all that aside, what we are here to find out is to see if this Goan Classic 350 is a rehashed version of the regular Classic 350 or there's more to it. So let's quickly hop onto this motorcycle and find out how it is to ride and handle, and if it offers a different riding experience compared to the Classic 350. Now first up, let's try to understand what the Goan Classic 350 is all about. Now as the name suggests, this is a Classic 350 but with a twist. So what this is, it's a bobber styled Classic 350. So as you can say, most of the changes have come in terms of aesthetics because mechanically this is the same motorcycle as the Classic 350. Now I'll just quickly tell you all the changes, all the major changes which are functional as well, and of course in terms of aesthetics also they are an update. Now starting with the handlebar, this is the most prominent change. You can see it has a tall ape style handlebar which is reminiscent of bobbers of the late 80s. So this feels quite retro in that sense. Now you come back, you'll see this has a single seat setup. Of course you can have it with the pillion seat as well, but that is removable. Now the other important thing to note here is that mechanically, yes, it has the same underpinnings as the Classic 350. So the J series engine is exactly the same as the Classic 350. It also has the same power output and torque, but the frame is also more or less the same. So this is a double down tube frame. So the front part is the same, but at the rear it doesn't have a subframe. So that is the main difference between this and the Classic. As you can see, it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have that tail section which you'll find on the Classic 350. And that begs another question: where and how do you put the rear seat or the pillion seat here? So basically that is a direct attachment to this socket over here. So it connects to the suspension and that's how you fit it. Of course Royal Enfield says that it's fairly easy to do, but you shouldn't be doing it yourself because it needs some expert intervention because the suspension is involved here. So again, it is a plug and play sort of setting, but they recommend that you go to the dealership and get it changed, and it's fairly easy that way. Now other than that, one crucial aspect about this motorcycle is the seat height. Now this is 750 millimeters, so that makes it one of the lowest seat heights of all the RE motorcycles. I think only the Super Meteor is lower than that. Other than that, there's no other motorcycle in the RE lineup which has such low seat height. So that makes it very accessible. Of course, in terms of weight, it's around 197 kilograms, which makes it 2 kilograms heavier than the Classic 350. But again, when you're sitting on the bike, it doesn't make any real difference for sure. Now the tank is exactly the same as your regular Classic, but the foot pegs have been moved slightly forward. I think that is by around 30 to 40 mm, but you can feel that difference when you're riding this motorcycle because it has a bit of cruiser-like riding style. So when you sit here, it's slightly more laid back than the Classic 350. Now that was about the riding stance. Other than that, everything looks very familiar on this motorcycle because the instrument cluster is exactly the same. So it's part analog, part digital. It also gets that tripper navigation pod. I'm thinking it's going to be optional on this motorcycle as well. So very familiar territory. You see everything that was already offered in other RE motorcycles. Even the switchgear is exactly the same as the Classic 350. So nothing has changed on that front. Even the mirrors, to me, they look more or less the same. Same goes for the headlamp as well. It has got LED headlamps. It has got LED position lamps. So these were the new updates on the Classic 350. So that's what you get on this motorcycle. However, the big change in terms of aesthetics are basically the color options that you get with this motorcycle. It has 4 color options on offer. This is called Trip Teal. It is a dual tone color shade and it looks quite cool. The paint quality is really phenomenal. And then there are 3 more color options. So one is red and black, the other one is matte black, and there's another one which is purple. So all of those colors look really cool and they really go with the theme of the motorcycle. So I think in that department, Royal Enfield is really doing a great job because these look like custom motorcycles. You know, they are all different, and we've seen it with other Royal Enfield products as well, because these are very cool color options that they give with the motorcycle. Now coming to the second big change on this motorcycle is the wheel size. Now at the front it gets the same wheel size as the Classic 350, so this is a 19-inch tire, but at the back you'll notice it has a smaller wheel. So this is a 16-incher compared to the 18-incher on the Classic 350. Now in addition to that, these wheels, even though these are spoke wheels, but if you come closer you'll notice that this is a cross spoke wheel. So these are tubeless, they are not tube type, and this is the first time that the Classic is getting tubeless wheels. Of course Royal Enfield introduced it with the Himalayan, but on the Classic mainstream bikes this is the first time that we are going to see tubeless spoke wheels. So that is a great addition, of course, and I think this will become a norm going forward for all the Classic motorcycles. Right now they have not commented when the Classic 350, the standard version, will get it, but this motorcycle will come standard with these tubeless wheels. So I think that is great news. You don't have to worry about punctures and the tedious process of fixing a tube type puncture. So I think that is a great addition. Now in addition to that, the wheel size, the width of the tire is also, it is a fatter tire, so it gives it a more sort of bobber style. And the other thing, of course, you can notice very clearly are these white wall tires. So overall, in terms of the design and aesthetics, I think Royal Enfield has absolutely nailed it, because this motorcycle, I think its visual appeal, it's one of its main draws. Now let's move on to the ride and handling of this motorcycle, because I just got to do around 60-70 kilometers in and around Goa. So let's quickly give you the verdict on its ride and handling, because that's where the real difference comes between this and the Classic 350. So as I had mentioned earlier, this has the same J series engine as the Classic 350. So that means it has the same power and torque figures, around 20.2 bhp and 27 Newton meters of torque. And it's also paired to a 5-speed transmission. Now as a result, unsurprisingly, the performance is also more or less the same, because the engine behaves in an identical manner on the road as well. You have this torque monster of a motor. It has torque from low down, and the moment you open the throttle, well, you have a lot of torque. You have oodles of torque to play with. Of course, irrespective of the gear you are in, you will get all the performance from this engine. So in that regard, I think it really suits the character of the motorcycle, and there is no faulting this engine, because of course there are a little bit of vibrations, and it's not really an outright speed machine, but it's made for laid back riding, and you really enjoy that sort of vibe in this motorcycle. Like I said, the gearing is also spot on, the throttle response is really crisp, and vibrations, well, of course they are there, but they don't bother you at all, because the nature of this motor is such that it's meant for just laid back riding. So I really enjoyed this motorcycle. The other thing is, of course, today we didn't get to ride it flat out anywhere, because we're mostly riding it in the back roads of Goa. So there it felt perfectly adequate. Wherever you want to go, you go over speed breakers, you're still in 4th gear, it'll pull from as low as 20 kilometers per hour in 5th gear, and without any trouble, without breaking a sweat. So I think in that regard, the engine performance, everything is identical to the Classic 350. And I think that is a great thing, and there's nothing to complain about as such. Now, of course, if there's one change in terms of the powertrain, it is the exhaust, because this is a new exhaust. It is a different design as well. There's a slash cut exhaust, and it sounds more or less the same as the Classic. I'll just quickly turn on the motorcycle and you can decide on that. So it has got the classic Royal Enfield thump. Of course, we'll also show you the video where I'm riding it on the road in the real world, so you'll get to know what sort of thump it makes in the real world when you're riding the motorcycle. But I think on that part also it's covered, and it's not subdued at all. You really enjoy this noise. The main difference between the Goan and the Classic 350 comes in the ride and handling department, and that's primarily down to the geometry of these motorcycles, because this is different to the Classic 350. This is more of a bobber, so it has different ergonomics, and at the same time it also gets a smaller 16-inch wheel, and that's also on a fatter tire. So that really makes all the difference. In the sense, the suspension is exactly the same on both the motorcycles, so same travel and same setup both at the front and at the back, but this definitely feels a little firm compared to the Classics. Now the Classic 350 suspension feels soft and plush going over bad roads, but this at low speeds, if you go over speed breaker, it definitely feels a little firm, especially at the back, and you can make out that difference very easily. But in terms of handling, I think again there is not much of a difference, because this also that laid back, relaxed cruiser of sorts. So both of these motorcycles, the Classic and the Goan, they're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but they do everything just fine. You can really enjoy that laid back riding experience with both the motorcycles. So there's no real problem in terms of the handling of these motorcycles, considering their target audience. One thing that I would have preferred to be better, the brakes, because the front lever, it doesn't have that sort of feedback or that bite that you'd want in a motorcycle of this size and this sort of weight, because when you're bringing all that mass to a halt, you definitely want some more bite from the brake lever, and it doesn't sort of have that. So I would have preferred a slightly stronger bite from the front brakes especially. But overall, like I said, this is a motorcycle that's meant for laid back riding, and I think in that department it definitely aces it. But if you compare it with the Classic 350, yes, it's not as plush. Overall, I think the Goan, it is a great addition to the Classic 350 range, because this adds another flavor to the Classic lineup. You know, the regular Classic, it is a little old school, it is a little subdued, but this has a more youthful image, and I think that really helps with all its color options. It looks a little sporty, it looks a little bobber style, and it has that extra element that some buyers would want on their motorcycle. So I think in that regard, Royal Enfield has done a great job with this motorcycle. Now what remains to be seen is how Royal Enfield positions it, and it also depends on the pricing. Now I think compared to the Classic, it should be around 15 to 20,000 more, given it has got cross-spoke wheels and a couple of modifications and some nice paint jobs. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more first ride reviews of all new motorcycles.